Welcome to the Bleep Bulimia podcast with Dr. Cindy Starke, internal medicine doctor turned a true healer. Hello, everyone. I am Lorianne. I am the host of Bleep Bulimia, and I am very pleased to have today Dr. Cindy Starke with us. She is an internal medicine doctor turned a true healer. I love that. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Lorianne, for letting me talk to your audience today. I'm so happy for this opportunity.
Well, you have a really great message, so I'm really glad to have you on here to share this with our listeners. So obviously my first question, as it always is that I'm curious, internal medicine doctor to true healer. Can you explain what prompted you to do this?
Yes, so I don't think it's very common for people to give themselves permission to reinvent themselves. And I found myself in my midlife where I was not happy with my marriage. I wasn't happy with my job, and I just didn't feel like I was really making an impact on people anymore. I had been a doctor for about 30 years, and I was so excited at the beginning. And I work in hospitals across the Northeast Georgia area down here in America. And I loved being a hospital doctor and helping people get out of these really acute illnesses that they were in, whether it was pneumonia or a diabetic coma or a GI bleed or all these awesome things where I got to see them get better and then they left the hospital. But as it went on, I don't know, about 17 years in, I just said, I just don't really feel like I'm making that much of a difference anymore. The population kept getting sicker and sicker. And I just started noticing I was more managing diseases and nobody was really getting any better. The same patients would come and see me a month later after I had gotten them all patched up and sent them out to the world. They were coming right back to me. I felt like I was like stuck they were in a revolving door, and like I was in Ground Hog's day. And I noticed that I was starting to get disillusioned with the job, and a lot of other older women were also kind of getting disillusioned with their job. And so I just kind of made a really bold, claim, and I just said, and there was a little bit more that went into it than that, but I feel like I could talk for an hour just on that one subject, and I know we want to talk about other things, but I left full-time medicine. I retired, and I think it had something to do with the fact that my kids going off to college, and I just didn't want to be stuck in a full-time job in a marriage that I was in, a loveless marriage. And so I left my job and I left my husband, and I just kind of practice medicine the way that I want to now. Okay, so I'm working like 9 days a month at different things that I have found to do. But what it gave me time to do, Lorianne, is heal myself from this childhood program that had been running of overachieving and proving to myself that I was enough, and 2 doctorate degrees. And, it wasn't enough that, I got into fitness and I had to be a fitness instructor. And then it wasn't enough that I, wanted to learn how to do a triathlon. I did the longest triathlon there is. And I was just like in this worthiness cycle. Like I felt like my worthiness was like predicted or predicated on like accomplishment of like ridiculously large goals. And I just knew if I'm going through this, other people are probably going through this too. And so I started this whole true healing journey in my own self with counselors and childhood trauma release. And now I bring that to a bunch of women in their midlife too. And so I let them know that they're worthy just because they exist. You don't have to do a bunch of things to prove your worthiness. So yeah, I get to see women kind of come alive all the time around me instead of just managing numbers in blood work. It's so much better and so fun now.
That's neat. And it's true, because we were talking earlier prior to the show regarding that. And I was saying that a lot of my listeners would definitely engage with that overachieving and trying to overachieve just simply because that's what you felt that your worth was. But the what comes along with it, and I don't know your story, but I know with a lot of my listeners, that is a part, I believe, of the bulimia. You know, eating your, it's almost like you hide, so it's like a cave, right? So you overeat, and then you don't want people to know you're overeating, so you release it, but you're also releasing your feelings at the same time when you're bulimic, right? So it's like I'm eating my anger, and then I relieve my anger, but it's also a hidden closet, right away. So now I'm just and a lot of that is this, you're overachieving, but you're not loving yourself, right? And I think that's a
Right.
big thing, right?
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. Just listen to what you just said. Um, when you're working so much to prove that you're worthy, I
Mhm.
think what happens is it's exactly like bulimia. I feel like the root is the same. It's this big, energetically expensive series of activity that you go through. And then at the end of the day, you're still just empty. And like, what did you do that for? You just missed out on everything. And I think one of the biggest things that I learned in my healing journey and what I teach my women is that your emotions are here for you. And if I'm lonely or feeling guilty about something, I don't need to go and work a bunch of shifts to prove that people like me or that I can make money or that, I'm pulling one for the team and working like 18 shifts in a row. Like it's enough to say no, because when you're lonely, maybe you just need to go and call a friend.
Yeah,
Or if you're feeling guilty about something, maybe you need to do like the trauma release work and like let go of all that guilt and shame instead of just exactly what you were saying, doing stuff to yourself that then you feel depleted because of it.
yep, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's almost like an introversion. And I do believe that people who are high achievers, I call myself an ambivert. Like I love
Me
people,
too.
right? But then I need to dumb down. But what I love what you just said is about emotions are everything. So as a bulimic, you are numbing your emotions by using food to numb them, right? So, and then, but they're still there. So when I stopped being bulimic 13 years ago, the biggest difficulty in the first 6 months was having to face those emotions, right? Without
Yeah.
the go-to.
Food.
Yeah.
I want to ask a question. When you're bulimic, and pardon my ignorance, but I don't know, so I would love for you to tell me. But when you are bulimic, does the food ever give you pleasure, and does it give you energy, or is it just this exhausting thing that you go through, the eating of it and the purging of it? Like, how long does the whole thing last,
There's
or
sort
is
of
it
rule.
different?
I don't know if it's everybody, but my rule is 20 minutes. So like you
Okay.
binge for 20 minutes, you binge, and then you got 20 minutes before you have to, usually it's right after, but if you're stuck in a place where you went to a restaurant, you got 20 minutes to get rid of it. So the anxiety, right, of trying to find it without people knowing you're doing it. But there is a definitely a euphoria when you're first binging. And
Okay.
then, right, so it's like there is pleasure,
Figure.
and then
Yeah.
there's pain. So pleasure and pain, and then
Okay.
exhaustion, and then heart beating like there's no tomorrow, and then wondering if you're going to make it through it because it's not healthy, right? Because your heart, you're putting a lot of pressure on your heart.
How long does the purge part last?
Oh, it all depends on how much you eat, but
Oh,
usually
okay, okay.
not usually too long. And you know, like I said, this is a weird subject to talk about, but I was 30 years into it, so I could actually just will myself. And so it would probably be about 10, maybe 15 minutes. That's it to
Okay.
get rid of something. And the actual binging would probably be about 15, 20 minutes, maybe a half
And then how
hour.
long are you tired afterwards?
Uh, it all depends on what the day was like or anything. Um, but usually not tired, just a little bit exhausted. Like if you want to go for a run, right? It's kind of weird. Um, but you come out of it. I think it all depends too. Like when I was 22, it was really bad. I would do it 9 times a day. And so by the end of the day, I was exhausted. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well,
So there's
so
different levels. And then
yeah.
later on, it was mostly I would work through the day. Everything was fine. I ate fine, but nighttime was my hardest time. Because I had the option. I was home and I could hide and I could do whatever, and eat whatever. So
Yeah,
yeah,
because I'm imagining if you're in a restaurant or if you're at work, there's always way too many people around you to hear what's going on.
you'd be surprised.
So you can go to bathrooms that are empty
Yeah,
and
you
you get
find
it
your
done pretty
ways.
fast. Okay, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I'm asking is because, you know, when it takes 1 second to sign up for too many shifts at the hospital, right? 1 second. You just say yes um without thinking, and you just, like this subconscious wish is in your brain, that you're wanting to people to like you and to see you as a good team player, but then it'll take 12 hours to go through too much of it, right? Because the hours are always, the shifts are always 12 hours. And then if you string too many of them together, sometimes you can be sick, and that tiredness from being sick from overworking yourself would last for 2 weeks, and you're like,
Wow.
what did I do that for,
Yeah.
it's just a terrible cycle, the things we do to ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And before we know better, it's just really heartbreaking
Yeah.
and I don't want to say sickening, but it makes me sick now to think about what I used to do. I'll never forget, right after I did this triathlon, it took me 2 years to train for it. And at any given time, I was only working out um, mostly just 40 minutes at a time. Really fast swim, 40 minutes. Really fast run, 20 minutes. Really fast bike, maybe 30 or 40 minutes. But then every week we had to do a long one of each of those. So the swim would last 2 hours. The jog would
Wow.
last 2.5 hours, but the bike would be 6 hours. So it was just like I was just so driven, and I just had to do it. And like everything had to, be put on the wayside because I had to meet my goals. And then I finally crossed the finish line, and it was like a really circuitous path, and I had like failed one of the triathlons, and I broke my thumb in the process. So I had this big story to tell after it was all over, and I wanted to write a book about it. And my poor daughter, she was 12, she said, Mom,
Oh,
please don't write a book about it, I just want you back home. And I just realized, at that point, I'm like, what am I doing? And
yeah.
who am I proving all this to, And I just think as women, especially in our second halves of our lives or in the middle of our lives there, we're kind of running these societal programming scripts and narratives that are just telling us that we're worth this one thing, and we don't even realize what's calling the shot. So that's what I do now for my true healing, is that I help people rewire the programming that's running the show. I mean, literally go in and rewire your subconscious mind so that it's for you instead of working against you. And it's such a better way to live, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it is a rewiring, and that's crazy too, because like to be, you had the completion thing, you had to complete. I had the same thing too. I was member of a chamber of commerce, and I was set for becoming president, and they didn't want me at the last year. They tried to, get me to quit. And I thought, I'm not quitting. But what was it all for? It was like a full-time job you're not getting paid for, but it was for me, the completion, to prove that I could
Title.
complete this, write that title. And here I have all these, I have my young kids there again, like they're not going to remember that. They're not going to remember their mom. Whoa, give a crap that she was president of the Oakville Chamber of Commerce, or that she was, the executive director of this, or she was this. They're going to remember the time you spent with them. And I
Yeah,
missed out on some of that because of my need to achieve, like,
yeah,
which is nuts. I
yeah.
mean,
And
I
I,
did spend a lot of time with them, but to me, had I not done all that stupid trying to achieve, I would have had more time with them. And right?
yeah,
And to
I'll
feel
never
enough.
forget. I'll never forget. I finally went through all of medical school and all of graduate school, and that in and of itself took 7 years. And then
Wow.
I finally went through the residency program to become an internal medicine physician. And that took 3 years. And I finally was pregnant with my first baby and finally married. I put all of motherhood and, wifehood off until all that was done. Finally go walk down the aisle and have a baby in my uterus. And then that's when the overachieving temptation
Yeah.
started. And they told me, you can stay on for another year of residency and become the chief resident. It's a feather in your cap. They literally called it a feather in your cap. And I started thinking about it. Why do I want a feather in my cap when I have a baby that's about to be born and I want to nurse her? And like I thank God something told me heck no, and I didn't take that position. But it was like a third of the money, Lorianne, for triple the time. And I wasn't even, I just know, like hindsight 2020, I wouldn't have been able to nurse my baby the way I wanted to,
Yeah.
if I would have taken that position. I was smart enough back then to say no. But like the overachieving kind of didn't really start until I was about 40.
Yeah.
And by 50, I had finally learned my lesson and I stopped all the insanity. But it's just,
You were a
I don't,
late bloomer for that
yeah,
one. I
yeah,
was in my it all hit when I was 28, and then by the time I was uh 40, I was it was overkill volunteer. Just I had a burnout, like too
yeah,
much, too much.
yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think that women are, I don't know if we're trying to impress each other or if we're trying to like put ourselves in a man's world and
Right?
just like do too much. But it
Or
is
both.
enough. I tell myself right now, and I told my kids, is it enough for me to just work 9 days a month right now? Because I'm still getting over the divorce from their dad. And I'm still, I put on a lot of weight at menopause. I think we were talking about that before the show started airing. And I had to get rid of that because I'm like, this is not serving me anymore. I'm done with this extra 20 pounds. So that took some work to get that off. And they said, yes, it's okay that you only work 9 days a month. I'm like, because that's what I'm needing right now, just to heal from what I've done to myself for the past 20 years. And I don't know how long that's gonna last, but I think it's just so freeing when we can kind of give ourselves as long as it takes to
Yes.
kind of get through this next phase of our life.
Well, I felt that through COVID. Like that was a nice break.
Yes.
I've been through, the ups and downs. I owned a business, lost it all. I was 48. And I mean, at 48 to start all over again, you feel like a failure. But then now I look back, I go, wow, that was a great experience. I loved it. I had my own auto repair shop. I had a little, hobby farm with the goats and chickens and all that. Um, there's nothing to say that that's a failure. That was just, it's an experience. But because people put financial on things, right? So like when you end up losing everything, now you're at $0, then you just feel like, ooh, now I'm just like a loser. But if you turn it around and say, no, look at the experience you've gone through, it's a whole different, it's like that's why I like your rewiring factor there. To rewire your thoughts. Can you give me a little bit more of an idea, if you can, on how do you do that?
Yes, I would love to tell you. I can just kind of tell you the steps,
Yeah.
and then I will tell you uh I host workshops once a month, and so we can do them in person, or not in person, but like on Zoom, and so you can experience what it feels like, or your listeners can experience what it feels like, and what kind of major enlightenments can happen. So what it is that there's this one part of your subconscious mind called the reticular activating system, and it is where all of our programming lies, like our parental programming, societal programming, religious programming, all that, kind of like where we see our place in the world and what we're allowed to do in the world. It's all just a bunch of limiting beliefs that is all constructs of society. It's not really what lights you up. It's just like the box that you're supposed to fit into. Okay. And, for a lot of us, we thought we had to get married. We thought we had to get a full-time job, all this kind of stuff. We thought we had to stay small, be quiet, not what's it called? Rock the waves, that kind of stuff. And that just doesn't end up really serving a lot of us. And so what we do to clear out all these limiting beliefs is kind of like a gunk that goes into the filters, is what I see it as. And so what happens is, just imagine this, that you were brought up having this belief of, I'm not worthy. Okay, I'll use myself as an example. And through some childhood sexual abuse that I unfortunately endured for this one pivotal summer from age 14 to 15, I had these terrible things happen, and I told myself at that time I wasn't worthy of protection from my mom and dad. Like, they didn't protect me from that, and I wasn't worthy of love from a man. I was just like a sexual object. Like, neither one of those are true at all, but I told myself that for the rest of my life. And so you go in, and to clear out that limiting belief of I'm not worthy, you start. I wish I had a little figure right in front of me, but just imagine a grid, right? Everything up and down, everything left to right, and then little holes in between all that. You got it?
Yeah.
So what you do to get rid of this once and for all, you clear out, it's called a clearing, every single influence in your life that contributed to that limiting belief. So I would clear out my mom, my dad, the gross friends of my brothers that did that to me that summer, my brother, and like everybody else. And then I would clear. So that's this way. You're clearing that out. And it's a meditation. I'll get into the meditation and what is in the meditation in just a minute. But for right now, I'll just kind of giving you the structure of the grid. And then you go in,
Which
and
is
you clear
vertical,
out
by the way. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just want to say to my listeners, because they can't see you, that's a vertical up and down. That's what she was clearing out.
Okay, now I'm clearing out the horizontal, and that's the emotions. Okay, fear, anxiety, sadness, and guilt. Fear, anxiety. No, fear and anxiety are the same thing. Fear, anger, guilt, and sadness. And so you clear out the horizontal. And then you go in, and you do that through meditation. And then you go in and you get rid of the limiting beliefs that are the little holes in between, the tic-tac-toe kind of a thing. And the whole scaffolding of these messed up beliefs that are running your life fall. And you're able to have the wiring of your nervous system kind of like rebooted, and like you don't have any of these negative people that the negative things that came from these influences or the beliefs or the emotions running your life anymore. So I'm just going to give you briefly the 5 parts of the clearing. Okay, it's a 6-week process, and it's the most glorious thing to witness people go through in the world. And I offer this in group and individual programs, and we can talk about later how people can find me to see if they're just feeling stuck and they can't get out of this muck that they're in. This kind of gives you a reboot on your whole entire nervous system and with your subconscious mind. But so the 5 parts of the clearing are, first I take you through so it's we get into a meditative state, and I take you into something called the hue of light, where it's like this, you kind of get into a semi-meditative state, but we're just talking to each other. I'm not hypnotizing you and putting you into a trance. It's just like relaxation. But I get you into this awareness of your world and your life. I call it the hue of light between this world and the next, where all of God's love, light, wisdom, healing, and understanding resides, which is going to help and assist you through this clearing. And if you're willing to go into this hue of light, you go there. Okay, so it's just like this all-knowing, like the truest version of ourself, Lorianne. Okay, and it's like what God gives us all. It's like this divinity. I almost think of it like omnipotence. This just beautiful bubble of wisdom that we all have when we are able to connect with the divinity inside of us. And then we do an empty out. So that's the second part. And we empty out all of our emotions toward this person, place, or thing. And then we So let's just say I'm doing my mom first and then my dad, and I'm wondering why they didn't protect me that summer. We drop down through the heart, which is the third part, drop down through the heart. And you're in this semi-trance state, and you're able to kind of like envision what is the most negative emotion in your mom or dad's heart. And then you kind of drop down below that until you get to something positive. I can't possibly explain the whole thing right now. I'm just trying to give you an overview without overwhelming you with information. I feel like I'm telling too many details, so I'm sorry.
That's good. No, that's
Um,
good.
Drop down through the heart, and then we do something called inner child resourcing. So you'll have a chance to let inner children of yours, like my 4-year-old, my 7-year-old, my 14-year-old, 25 and 38-year-old, always showed up. And we give in this next phase of the trance or the meditation, your inner children a voice and a chance to speak up and say what they have to say and what they needed at that particular moment. And we resource the inner children. And then the last thing is that we cut the cords and we let everything that belongs to them go to them, and you're able to get back everything that belongs to you, so that you can heal and grow and develop and evolve as an individual human. And then you do a lot of journaling afterwards. So as you can probably tell, it's a very holistic kind of a healing modality where you really get out a lot of gunk that's been holding you back in your life, and you do it, over and over again. And the amount of wisdom that you have in those inner children is just amazing, and you come out of the process a new person every time. It's a beautiful thing.
I love that. And I love that the children, I should go back sometimes and I remember, you remember how you felt, you remember what, and you said there are certain ages that you remember. I do. Specifically for me, it would be like 9, 11, 16, 28, 38, 40,
Yep.
and
Yep.
then after, and then 50, 48. And from there, that's when my healing actually started at 48.
Yeah.
It's
So,
interesting.
yeah, and one of my inner children is 52, because that's the age I was when I left my husband.
Yeah.
And I finally said enough is enough. And that can be an inner child of yours too, because she's younger than you are now, and she
Yeah.
doesn't know like what all you've been through right now. It's just, isn't it just amazing, really, just to be alive? And like, I'm feeling myself getting teary-eyed. I think it's a really beautiful thing that we kind of get to grow and be alive, and we get to go through these stages where we can grow even more as a 52-year-old and as a 54-year-old. My daughter tells me all the time, she said, I just want to be just like you when I grow up, Mom. You're just so open-minded and you're always into healing. And, I'm in therapy every single week, and I just said, well, I just want to learn everything I can while I have the joy and the privilege and the honor of living in this thing called a human suit, this little meat suit that we live in. I just think life is wonderful. It's just
I like
the
that
things you
meat
get to
suit.
learn.
That's perfect.
The
Yeah,
meat
and you're
suit.
absolutely right. And I mean, I live with my mom, and I always tell people like I'm 61, and I feel like I'm 30, because I don't see my mom either at 89. To me, she's in her 60s. I'm in my 30s, and it's not until I look in the mirror and go, "Oh yeah, I've got those."
I guess I'm
Oh,
not
whoops, I got
31.
this.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it gets to the point where none of that really matters. I mean, I know, you look at Hollywood, and that's the other thing we were talking about with the Bleep Bulimia, right? Midlife, particularly, there is so much about, women getting Botox, getting, their lips Botox and this Botox, and getting their, making themselves look younger. I mean, I don't even wear makeup. Like, uh, I don't, I want to live my life out the way I'm supposed to live out my life and the way I'm supposed to look. And I don't want to change my looks. And I'm not saying that it's wrong for those women who want to do it, but that pressure, right? Like the body, how you're supposed to look. And you look at, Jennifer Aniston, who's in her 50s, and then you go, wow, like, oh my gosh, I look like, 30 years older than her. Well, you can't do that. And if you're really comfortable in yourself, you won't want to. It just, you'll live it out like a Katharine Hepburn, or, like those other
Yeah,
people's.
I have one thing to say to that, and this might not be a popular opinion, and that's okay. But I think that there is this beauty industry in America that glorifies the young and acts like all of us are just terrible people. And we only have worth in this world if we look like we used to look when we were 24 years
Yeah,
old. And
yeah,
I call bull crap on that. I say I am getting so much wiser and so much more beautiful the older I get,
yeah,
and I just, I told my son the other day, I said, Wyatt, I said, my neck is starting to get really something's happening to my neck. And he said, Mom, I don't think that just started happening. I said, yes, it did. It just started happening last week. He said, it didn't. I said, well, you know what? I'm embracing it. I don't care. And I'm not going to do all that because it makes you feel like they're only acting like we're worth something if we're younger. And that's a
yeah,
terrible thing to tell us older women. We have so much wisdom to give to the world now that we have these wrinkles and now that we
yeah,
have, the saggy everything. I mean, like, it just means we're alive. We're good.
yeah. In our meat suit.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, the meat suit, it falls prey to gravity. So some things are going to happen in the meat
Yeah,
suit as we live in it. We're really just a spirit, right? Don't you think?
yeah,
We're a spirit in this meat suit, and this is not really us. What's really us is what's inside. And and
absolutely.
and that doesn't change with
Yeah,
age. And it's just the beauty industry making us believe all this
yeah,
other stuff. They're banking on us of our insecurities and our
yes.
fear. And
And that's
that's
how they make the money. And that's actually interesting because my daughter, just beautiful. She's 30, 30. I mean, hello, I'm 31 years older than you. And she's going, she stopped wearing makeup for about 7 years because she's anti-plastic, and the makeup industry is very high on the production of plastic. So she just cut it all out, and she was a makeup artist and then just cut it all out. So then, like, I guess about 2 years ago, she started wearing makeup again. And I went, she's very careful about where she buys it because that she is, but I said, what's that? She goes, oh, I started looking old. I'm going, you're 30. I look at pictures of myself at 40 and I'm going, man, I looked good. Going,
yeah.
when I turn 70, I'm going to look at pictures of me at 61 and go, dang, I look good.
You look beautiful. You look
Thank
absolutely
you.
beautiful. We both do, and
Yeah.
it's so funny. Right before I met you, I asked this friend of mine from the hospital. She and I used to work together for 17 years and she retired. And I asked her to let's go out to get coffee, and I told her that I thought she was about maybe 5 or 10 years older than me, and she's like, Dr. Stark, I'm 76 years old and I'm 54. She's 22 years older than me. I never knew. I thought she was about 5 or 7 years older than me. It's all a state of mind, and we're
Yeah.
not old. We're just
Yeah.
older, and we're just more mature, and there's just nothing wrong with that. And I always tell my mom, she'll say, I hate that I'm so old. I'm forgetting things, Cindy. And I said, Mom, the only other thing you can be besides old is dead. So don't, like, you'll never be as young as you are today. So just be happy that you're alive today. And she's like, thank you for that perspective change. But, people just, yeah, we do. We hate that we're not as young as we used to be, but we're
I
getting
don't,
older today.
I mean, I think, the end result of getting older is not always fun to think about, but that's something I try not to. And my mother even said that. She's 89 and she says, I still feel 30. And she goes, so
Good.
she's, yeah, and she'll say the same thing. I forget things. I'm going, Mom, you've got 89 years of files in your head, and we can't delete the files. You said yes, you can push them away and
Uh-huh.
clear out certain things,
Right.
but it's not like a computer where you go delete, 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 delete
Right.
easily.
Right.
Okay.
And what
So
my process does is I use the verb transmute. It kind of changes it from, like,
yeah,
you're not really deleting it, but you're just showing yourself for what it is so that you can grow with it instead of letting it just poison you or inhibit your ability to do whatever it is that you want to do in your life. So yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
our moms, I can't even imagine when my mom is 89. She's 78 right now, but But yeah, I hate that sometimes their brains don't work 100% like they used to, but it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, they've got so much information, so many memories, so many, and they bring them up, and that's the important thing. She says, and if I repeat myself, don't bug me. I go, and
Yeah,
it's true, and listeners really do. If you have a mother that's aging and they do repeat themselves, appreciate that she's telling that story over and over again because it means something to her and it's important. So,
that's right. That's
like Mom
right. And
said,
don't
please be
tell her,
patient with
yeah,
me.
you just said that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Be
Yeah.
patient with your moms. Okay, so we're going to end this with, please tell us where my listeners can find you.
Oh, absolutely. I have a website that's really easy to remember. It's just my name, drcindystarke.com. And my last name has an E on the end of it. And then I just made it be DR Cindy, no period. And the whole word is not spelled out. So drcindystarke.com. And there's a way when you go to that website, I've shot a 30-minute training on these tools. And so they can register for that. And then also, there's a place for them to join my Facebook group and all that. So I would love to keep the conversation going with your listeners. So thank you so much for having me today.
Well, thank you too. And again, too, I did see your little video about, you working through COVID. Thank you for your service. I really do admire the people. I'm getting like teary-eyed. Like that was a really difficult period, and you're at the front line, the nurses, the doctors. It was like, without you, like it was important, and I'm sorry that, the overwork that happened through that, but we appreciate you. We
Oh,
do.
thank you so much. I felt like when I went through that the terrible year of my life, of our collective lives, I felt like I must know what it feels like to be military, because everybody would come up and thank me. And I've never gotten so much recognition in the world at all. But people would give me like a free cup of coffee everywhere I went. And I said, oh, this must be what it feels like to be in the Army or the Navy. I mean, like the armed forces. And so you're welcome. And it was our pleasure. It was a scary time. I just want to tell you this one little story. I thought I was bringing home the COVID particles on my eyelashes and on my earrings. So all of us doctors, us lady doctors, we just stopped wearing mascara. We stopped wearing earrings because we didn't know how it was transmitted there at the beginning. And that was the most scary part. I felt like I needed to, but I didn't. I should like take all my clothes off outside of my house and like take an acid shower naked before I would go into my house, because I didn't want to get my kids sick. And it was so scary being a mom and a wife, because and working in a hospital, because I didn't know how it was transmitted. And I thought I was going to you literally thought you're going to kill your family. It was just so scary, but we all made it through together and we all banded together. And I'm so happy that we were able to, serve our communities the way that we did.
And thank you. Thank you very much. And
Mhm.
thank you for being here today and sharing your message. I really appreciate you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Lorianne. I hope to talk to you again soon.
Absolutely. Take care. Thank you for listening to this episode. Be sure to visit me at bleepbulimia.com.